Steve and Lenore are still with us. Steve, every time we talk about China, whether it's trade policy, intellectual property, I always think this is tied to North Korea. And that's what it was in the beginning. It's another way of putting pressure on China where they care about it so that they are more helpful than they've been with the situation in North Korea. Am I reading that correctly, or you think I'm nuts?
No, I think that's part of it, Melissa, of course. But it's bigger than that even. I mean, of course, we have sort of near-term problems with North Korea, but we have long-term problems with China. Forever, we have treated China, certainly since the year 2000. And by the way, as a Republican, I'll put as much blame on the Bush administration as I would on the Obama administration. We have treated China as though we are equal trading partners, when it's nothing of the sort. We have given them the benefit of the doubt on every trading aspect, while they have willfully, knowingly, and on a wholesale basis, utterly stolen our intellectual property. So I'm so proud of President Trump to finally say, enough. This isn't real trade. It's not free trade. It's a theft of prosperity from Main Street to China, and we've had enough of it.
Lenore, what's your take?
I agree with you that it's ridiculous that we allow any sort of theft, whether it be intellectual or otherwise. That just cannot happen. But we need to be very careful here to not really shoot ourselves in the foot, because we also benefit a great deal from trade with China. We benefit in terms of being able to import goods that are much less expensive than they otherwise would. And we also benefit from our exports. We have quite a trade surplus, for example, when it comes to agricultural products.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay, so back to the situation in Charlottesville, and there is a business hook to this story. A prominent African-American business leader is quitting President Trump's manufacturing council in wake of the events in Charlottesville. Kenneth Frazier says, quote, "As CEO of Merck and as a matter of personal conscience, I feel a responsibility to take a stand against intolerance and extremism." The president firing back on Twitter saying, quote, "Now that Ken Frazier of Merck Pharma has resigned from President's Manufacturing Council, he will have more time to lower rip-off drug prices." Steve, you know, on the one hand, you can appreciate somebody's personal conscience about this. On the other hand, he's not just doing it himself. He's taking the whole company and all shareholders with him.
And, David, listen, I really believe this is the height of hypocrisy, and this is what we've seen too much in America, whether it's China, whether it's Obamacare. There is a crony capitalist system that exists for its own self-aggrandizement. Companies like Merck, Big Pharma has done wonderfully under Obamacare. You know who hasn't? Patients and doctors, okay? So for him to take the moral high ground and say, I'm going to take a stand against President Trump, who is trying his damnedest to break up Obamacare and to re-empower the American people, I think is ludicrous. On top of that, the president today could not have been more clear in his denunciation of racism in every form.
He was. Of course, some people say it was a couple days late, but Lenore, the point is, it is, again, we know that pharmaceutical companies depend tremendously on the government with regard to Medicare. That was put in under the Bush pharma plan, Medicaid, VA, you name it. On the other hand, the big question for me is whether an individual, because of his personal conscience, should be able to guide thousands, if not millions, of stockholders and who no longer have a seat at the table in the White House.
Well, and on that, if he hadn't resigned, did that mean that Trump was going to allow unfair pricing practices? Is it just if the Merck CEO's on there? I mean, to me, I found that a very strange tweet to say, well, because he's not backing me up and saying I didn't say the right thing, now I'm going to go after pharma.
But you see what I'm saying. I mean, is it conceivable that one person should have the right, because of his personal conscience, to take a company? I mean, if you feel that way, resign, get rid of your multi-million-dollar salary, and give it to somebody else. But the company deserves a seat at the table. They have one now, or they used to have one. They don't now because of one person's personal conscience.
Absolutely. But I think it gets really complicated because you're dealing with a president who does have rather high disapproval ratings and rather low approval ratings, and it gets very complicated when topics like this come up that are so polarizing. As a CEO,
what do you do? As a stockholder, I want to make money,
either way, you're going to tip people.
As a stockholder, I just want to make money. All right, Steve, Lenore, thank you very much. Good stuff.